Well, all right, here we are. All right, so welcome back to school after this huge layoff. Yeah, it seems like it was a long time ago that the fall semester ended. And now, of course, we're seeing a nice little winter storm brewing up here. So at least this week, online does seem to be the way to go, doesn't it? Yes. Well, actually, the school is going to have online only this week anyway, even if you were supposed to meet in person. But of course, this class is only going to be online. And so let's see who's here. I noticed in some of my classes, hardly anyone wants to have their cameras on. Other classes, I get a lot of cameras. That's cool. That way I can actually see what you look like, which is kind of nice. Yeah, I think we're all kind of getting used to this online stuff, but it's still kind of strange compared to being there in the classroom. I mean, it's kind of a what else are we going to do? But it's still never going to be quite the same. But it's not a bad substitute. So for this class, we're doing this with Zoom, of course, and all the meetings will be recorded, so that if you miss one, you can actually watch it on the recording, or else if you simply want to watch it again because you missed something important. So let me start by showing you where you'll find the recordings when they're ready. Because Zoom doesn't, Moodle doesn't really work well with recordings. What we're going to do here is store them in YouTube. And now, of course, that means you have to know where in YouTube. So here's where we're going. This is just a generic YouTube page, but right here, up here, it says your channel. And you can see, I believe if you just type in my name, it will take you to my channel. And when you get there, what I've done is, because I've got quite a few classes, I don't want all the recordings to be just jumbled together. I've created a series of what are called playlists, and you'll find ours. It's not there right now because there's no videos in it, but once I've recorded the first video, you'll see there will be a playlist for this class, which is Economics 1500. And then after every session, you'll find our video in there, which you can watch or not watch. It's up to you, but it's there if you need it. And so that's kind of cool. That's one good thing about this online business, is that we can record everything. Obviously, in the classroom, that's not really practical, is it? Unless you own a lot of very expensive equipment. So the recordings will be available there. Now, what we should always probably do first here is take a look at Moodle, so that we can see what's on there. And also, I want to show you the syllabus so that we can see where we're going with this class. Now, I've got so much stuff open, I can hardly find it. Where are we? No. Okay. Oh God, it's here somewhere. That's right. I'll log into it again. I literally can't find the thing. So, all right, let's go open up a new website. All right, here we go. So we have spring. So we're Economics 1500, macroeconomic theory. This is the actually meant to be the first semester of basic macroeconomics. Now, you'll see that I've got here for today, we've got our syllabus. We've got the first chapter, and also I've got a couple of videos that we'll be watching later on. And before every class, of course, I'll be posting all the notes that you need. So you should get into the habit of looking at them before we get started, so that you have a better feel for where we're going with this material. Now, it's possible that you've seen some of this stuff before in high school, but fairly soon we should be moving into more advanced material that you probably haven't seen before. I don't know what your economics backgrounds look like. In fact, this gives me an excuse to show off one of Zoom's really interesting capabilities. It has polls. So watch what I can do here. And this is just, something I would have normally asked anyway, at the first beginning of any class. Did you have any economics in high school? And then this will be a yes or no. And so what will happen is you'll have the ability to vote yes or no. And then we're going to find out how many of you have actually had some background in economics. So here we go. Our first poll of the semester. Oh, wow, there's a lot of that. I see a lot of yeses. Okay, well, that's good. I mean, the more background you have, obviously, the better off you'll be. But again, in the beginning, you might be seeing material that you've seen before, but that's okay because we'll get into the more advanced material fairly quickly. All right, so now, oh, I know what I can ask you. Watch this. Are you an economics major? Ooh, that should be an interesting question. I'd be interested in seeing this one. I know that it's a small department. Oh my God. Yes, we've got somebody. Woohoo. Yes, so we have at least one economics major in this class. I'm glad to hear it. Does that person want to identify themselves?
Yes, that's me.
Oh, I can't tell who's speaking. Wow.
Oh, Joseph Romeo.
Oh, okay, there you are. No, I know there's a way. I don't remember how to do it though. Oh, there it is. Yes, I can see because your microphone is on. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you're a major. Yay.
Yeah, I just switched over actually.
Yeah, it's not a huge department, but it is a good department. And so obviously we like to have more majors whenever we can. And so that's great. This is just the starting point for you. So what will come next is you'll have to do basic micro, and then you'll have intermediate micro and macro, and then you'll get to take a bunch of very cool electives. Okay, that's what you have to look forward to. All right, the rest of you, you can take electives in the economics department anytime you please. Just keep that in mind. All right. So anyway, so now what we should do next is look at the syllabus. Let's get that downloaded here. And all the information is here. Now, of course, you notice that the classroom is online. The office is online. Office hours are TBA, to be announced. This way, if you need to actually get together and discuss homework problems or something, then we can arrange a separate Zoom meeting. Or else, if you just have simple questions, you can send me emails. Which reminds me, I actually have two email addresses that you should know about. This one is obviously my purchase account. Now, the problem with this account, though, is that I have all your names listed in an Excel spreadsheet and your email addresses, so that when I send out your invitations, I need to be able to copy them right into an email and then send it directly to you. And I've discovered that for whatever reason, Sony Purchase's email system doesn't allow me to do that. It won't let me take a group of emails and plop them into an email. I have to type them separately. So it saves me an enormous amount of time to use my Gmail account, which you would have noticed when you got your invitation. It was actually coming not from my purchase account, but my own Gmail account right about here. And so if you look at it carefully, you'll see the name on it is draa2012@gmail.com. So if you want to write to me, you can either send it to my email at purchase or here. Either way is fine. But just don't be surprised when you see these emails coming from this email address. And also, if it went into your junk box, did that happen to anyone? Did your invitation go into a junk box? Okay, if it did, you have to basically tell it to stop doing that tell it that that's not junk, so that hopefully it'll let it into your box in the future. Because if it goes in your junk box, you're not going to notice it, are you? Does anyone here look at their junk box every day to make sure something important didn't slip in there? No. And if it stays in there long enough, eventually it disappears. So we have to be careful with that. All right, what else did you need to know? There's a book. Now, this one, I'm pretty sure you can get an electronic copy of it. In other words, one that you can read with a Kindle, or maybe there's another way. I don't know. I'm so bad with technology. I have Kindle on this computer right here. It's an app. It lets me read books, online books. Now, I don't know if there's another way of reading online books like that, but if you go into Amazon, I'm pretty sure you'll find that this is available in that format if you want to save a little money. It's also possible you could rent it, but it is a soft cover, so it's probably not too terribly expensive. Did anyone buy it? Oh, I was just wondering how much it cost. Oh, I guess not. All right. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure you can get an electronic version of this. Now, so let's go through this a little bit. We've got 13 chapters to get through, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. And ultimately, though, the grades will come from 3 exams. Okay, we're going to have 2 midterms and a final. What we're going to do during the course is, besides going over the material, we're going to have a lot of practice problem sets so that we can work on them together during the classroom, and that you'll get your hands on a lot of these problems. Because to me, that's the best way to learn this material, is to practice with it. Okay, it's kind of like it's like learning the piano, I guess. You just practice all the time and you'll get pretty good at it. So the same thing will be true here. We'll have problem sets that we can work on together, but ultimately the grade will come down to these 3 exams. Okay, and the rest of this is just, miscellaneous language. You can read that on your own. Okay, so that's that. What else do you need to know? Well, I guess that's about it. So I'll tell you what, why don't we get started by looking at chapter 1. And at some point, we'll stop and look at these 2 videos, which are essentially an introduction to the field of economics, not necessarily macro, but the field itself, to give you a better feel for where we're going. And as we go along, we'll have other interesting videos to watch along with the class material. Now, a class like this, the calculators, you can use a calculator. You're not going to need it very often. You probably have one already. Let me do a poll on that one. Let's try this one. Calculators. Do you own a physical calculator? Yes or no? Okay, this will be an interesting question. All right, now I know you're all dying to give me your answer. Let me hold on a second. Okay, so most of you are saying yes. All right, every class is different. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. If you don't own a physical calculator, not to worry, because I'm sure you have a phone. Okay, I'm sure I don't have to ask a poll about that one. Do you have a poll or not? A phone, rather, sorry. So, uh-oh. Hold on a second. Somebody didn't get their link, so I'm going to have to quickly step aside here for a second, if you don't mind. Oh boy. I want to make sure everybody's here. So what I'm going to do is turn off the sharing for a moment, and hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to rescue this person. So we can get back to it now. Oh, yes. Anyway, I think I was talking about the calculators. Yeah. So unfortunately, somebody doesn't seem to have gotten their link. So I sent it out to them. So anyway, as far as the calculators are concerned, what you can do is if you don't have one, and you may not necessarily want to buy one, because if you're not majoring in economics or math or anything along those lines, and you're only going to use a calculator very occasionally, what you can do instead is this. I'm going to show this to you, and you may be surprised to see this. First of all, let's see what I'm going to try to show something to the camera. I'm not sure how I can tell if I'm seeing it or not. Oh, how does that work? Ah, wait a minute. Can you see that? What are you seeing there? I'm sure the glare is making it hard to see it, but this is an app on your iPhone, and it comes with a phone, so you can't delete it by mistake. And if you open it up, you'll discover that it has a very rudimentary calculator built into it. But watch what happens if you turn it on its side. Oh, look at that. All of a sudden, it turns into a full-blown, high-powered scientific calculator, which you can use for this class. So did you all know about that? Well, you do now. You see, that was worth coming to class today just for that reason alone. Yes, it's been hiding in there all that time that you've been playing with all the other apps instead of that one. You've been neglecting it, haven't you? That poor app has been sitting there saying, please play with me. I'm here. You do not. No. If you already own a TI 83 or 84, that's fantastic. But you don't have to. I wouldn't go out and buy one just for this class. If you think you might need it for the rest of your classes, that's a different matter, especially statistics. If you're going to take statistics, you should have a TI 83 or 4 ideally. But for this class, it would be absolutely not necessary unless you already own it. Okay. It's not a cheap calculator. It's at least $100, I think. All right, enough of that. So, well, with that being said, we can start now. A class like this is not that heavily quantitative, but there's a lot of graphs involved. So sooner rather than later, we want to get used to the way graphs work in economics. Graphs are designed to represent a lot of information in a very compact way. And you know perfectly well that visually, we tend to be visual learners. You learn or you can understand a graph or a picture typically much more quickly than a group of words or sentences. So that's why this is such a popular approach to understanding economics, and that would be these graphs, which the graphs themselves are really just a substitute for equations. In other words, when you see a graph in economics, it really is just an alternative way of expressing a lot of mathematical equations. Now, in the early days, like now, you'll be using all graphs. If you continue to take more economics courses, eventually you'll start to see the equations that are going on behind the scenes. And that's great. But for now, we'll focus our attention on graphs. Now, one year I did an actual survey, just for a joke almost, which I said, who likes to draw pictures in this class? And one person said no. I couldn't believe it. Graphs are fun. They're fun to draw. Okay, yes, they are. And you know it. When you were a little kid, you spent half of your time drawing pictures, didn't you? Of course you did. And you're still going to get fun out of drawing pictures. You never grow out of that. Let's put it that way. So anyway, we're going to have some nice graphs today along with our videos. But first, we have to introduce some key topics, key concepts. There's a certain vocabulary that we need to get used to in economics. Economics, like any other discipline, has a unique vocabulary of its own, but you will run into this a lot in the real world. Let's take a look at an example of this. Let me show you a website that you might want to think about looking at every day, and it's called cnbc.com. And what it's going to show you is, first of all, what's going on in the stock markets. For example, what do you think DJIA stands for? Oh no,
Dow Jones.
that's the Dow. Yes, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. What about this one? S&P. What's that?
It's the 500
S&P
companies.
500.
Yes, it's Standard & Poor's 500. It consists of the 500 largest stocks in the United States. Then what do we have here? Oh, that's okay. It's pronounced
NASDAQ.
It's an acronym. Yeah, I don't even remember what the letters stand for. National Association of Securities Dealers Automatic Quotation System or something like that. That's the one that typically has all the high tech companies on it. That's the newest of the three. It's the sexiest one, let's say. Everyone loves the NASDAQ. It's so cool. And then this is the Russell 2000. These are 2000 stocks from the, I think it's the 2000 largest stocks. So you can see the markets are doing great today. They're all up quite a bit. So if you own stocks, which by the way, you can buy stocks even as young as 18 with some of these online platforms, if that's the kind of thing that interests you. But also what you're seeing up here, look at all these wonderful articles that you can find. Like you can look at articles about currencies, like cryptocurrencies. Is anyone here interested in cryptocurrencies? Do you follow them?
Me.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Oh,
A little bit.
A little bit. I'll tell you what,
Those
it's beyond my comprehension what these things actually are. So I'll let you take care of that. I don't get it. I never will. They're like virtual currencies and they matter to some people. So, but then we also have all these other derivatives and bonds, and we have business articles, investing news. That if you're really investing for your own account, you should be reading these articles every day so you know what's going on in the markets. How else do you know what to do? So if you're an economist, you may be studying the markets, maybe not from the perspective of an investor, but to understand what's happening in the economy. In other words, an economist would ask questions like this: what kind of factors are causing the Dow to go up like this? Is it interest rates? Is it exchange rates? Is it consumer confidence? Is it economic growth? So economics, especially macroeconomics, is focused on the big picture. We're trying to look at variables that affect the entire economy, like inflation, unemployment, trade deficits, budget deficits, you name it. All the things you hear about in the media on a daily basis, most likely they are macroeconomic concepts. Micro looks at the little picture, which means we're looking at individual consumers and individual firms. It's a very different ball game. It's like the other extreme from macro. So when we start covering these topics, you may realize that you've heard of these things before from having read websites like this one or just having heard the news. Like right now, what is this bizarre event that's taking place on Wall Street? It's still going on and nobody knows what's going on.
Well, from my understanding, a lot of people, also like mainly Redditors, are really wanting to buy GameStop stock because hedge funds short sold it.
Right. They're buying it back to not only make money, but to hammer the hedge funds, because short selling is an incredibly risky technique. When you short sell a stock, you're basically saying, I think the price will go down. And so what you're doing is you're borrowing stocks that you don't own and you're selling them, and then your goal is to buy them back at a lower price. But if the price goes up in the meantime, you could potentially lose enormous amounts of money. In fact, a lot more than you even started out with. So that's why this is so controversial, because the hedge funds are kind of negative on GameStop for some reason. And these small investors essentially banded together and said, you know what, we're gonna punish you for that. We're gonna buy the stocks, we're gonna push it through the roof and put you guys out of business. So it's like unheard of for something like this to happen. And so that's why everyone's paying such close attention to it. And in fact, nobody really knows what's going to happen from all this because it's never really happened before. So this is the kind of thing that you might run into in the daily financial news. And so as an economist or a potential economist, these are exactly the kinds of things that you would be paying attention to. And what we're going to do in the class is try to provide the background so you can understand what's happening in these types of cases. Now, among the many interesting topics we'll be covering is money. You might think, well, money, what's there to think about? It's those green pieces of paper in our wallets, isn't it? We're going to find out that that isn't really what it's all about. And then we're also going to learn about the Central Bank of the United States. And let's see if anybody knows. I'm not sure if these polls can be used for open-ended questions. Let me find out. That would be helpful. Oh, no, maybe not. What? All right, just for the fun of it, just to find out if you've heard about this before, what is the name of the Central Bank of the United States? All right, let's find out. Now, of course, if you don't know, you don't know, but I was just wondering if you've heard of this before, because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it. The Bank of America, the Bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve System, and the really, okay, well, nobody's going to go for that one, but all right. Oh, okay. All right. So we didn't catch anyone. Yes, the Federal Reserve. Oh, no, somebody guessed wrong. Oh, no. Oh, no. That's all right. It's okay. It's the Federal Reserve System. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about the Federal Reserve System because, among other things, they're the ones who ultimately determine the level of interest rates in the economy. And that obviously has a huge influence on economic activity. They also print the money that we use, and they do all kinds of things. It's a very powerful organization. It has a very interesting history. You might be surprised. In fact, let me do another poll about this. God, I love these polls. Let's stop that. All right, here we go. I'm going to test your knowledge of history here. All right, let's do this. All right, it looks like we're pretty, oh no, we still have a few more. All right, well, it looks like most people were right. It is 1913. Okay, so now you might think, well, wait a minute, 1913, what was going on before that? Well, for about 75 years, we didn't have a central bank at all. And you can imagine the economy was pretty chaotic in those days. But we'll get to that discussion later on as well, down the road when we get to the discussion about money. So there's a lot of fun topics coming up in this class. In fact, you know what that reminds me? Why don't we go back to the syllabus for a second and just quickly note what topics we are looking at in this class. That should be fun. Here we go. So we're going to start out, we're going to look at the US and global economies, supply and demand, GDP, jobs and unemployment, CPI, growth, finance and investment and savings, and then money and interest rates will come at the end. Okay, so we're going to cover a lot of very important topics here so that you'll have a very good understanding of what's happening when you look at the news every day. Because let's face it, a large percentage of every day's news is really economics news when you come right down to it. All right, so let's get cracking on this first chapter. Let's at least get started with it. Let's see, and then fairly soon, I'm going to show you a couple of fun videos. Let me see where they're located here. Now I've lost it again. The links are in Moodle, by the way. I just want to point that out. Yeah, so if you want to watch them later on at your leisure, those are the links. So, all right, anyway, let's get started. So we're going to be looking at just what is all of economics based on. The key word here is scarcity. Okay, resources are scarce. That's a fact of life that we have to deal with. But what about what people want? Do people have, is there a limit to how much we want? In other words, if I said to you, what do you want? And you said, no, I'd be satisfied with a nice little house and a little car, and that's all I need to be happy. No, you want it all, don't you? You want a huge palace in France. You want money. You want gold. You want lots of cars. You want it all. Can you have those things, though? Well, why not? If you say no, why not? Why can't you have all those things?
It's hard
At
to
least
get.
it's hard. Yeah. I mean, what do you have to do to get those things? You need to earn tons of money doing something out there. You might become a rock star, or you might become a painter, or you might become the CEO of the next Amazon.com. But the reason why economics exists as a discipline in the first place is because of this imbalance between the scarcity of the resources needed to make products and what people actually want, which is essentially unlimited. I mean, the reality is, if you, let's say tomorrow you discovered that you had a crazy rich uncle who died and left you $1 billion in his will, what would you probably spend the rest of your life doing? Spending it. Of course you would, because wants are unlimited, but scarcity means you can't have everything you make. And because of that, we have to make choices. So when you go to the store, you've only got so much money in your pocket. Suppose there are two things there that you want and you can only afford to buy one of them. What do? You have to make a decision which of those two items is more valuable to you, okay? Because you've only got enough money to cover one of them. So because resources are scarce, we continuously have to make choices. And that means we have to make sacrifices. That's right. It's so sad, but that's reality, okay? So economics is all about how choices are made under conditions of scarcity. All right. Now, I did mention before that there are two basic branches of economics, micro and macro. And I said before that macro is based on the big picture, and micro means we're looking at individual consumers and individual businesses. So the focus is very different in the two disciplines, but ultimately everything comes down to this idea of scarcity. How choices are made under scarcity. Now, we're going to make a lot of assumptions. We're going to assume, and you may not agree with this. Let's get another document out here. I'm going to write down this word, and you're going to tell me what you think it means. Rational. Now, that word can mean a lot of things in different disciplines, but in general, what does it mean to say that somebody is rational? Well, all right, let me ask you a question. Are you rational? Oh, I think you are. A rational person makes decisions sensible decisions based on the information that he or she has. And so in economics, we're assuming that people are rational in the sense that people will not pay more for a product than they think it is worth. I mean, this is one of the implications of rationality, but this is one of the more important ones. You're never going to pay more for a product than you think it's worth. You go to the store to buy a 2-liter bottle of soda. If it suddenly went up to $10, what do? Do you buy it anyway? No, why not?
Because it's $10.
That's right.
Kind of a
Now,
lot.
That's a lot of money. And what that means is that with that same $10, you could buy things that you think are worth more than a 2-liter bottle of soda. So again, because you only have so much money in your pocket, you've got to decide what things are worth having and what things are not. The price will ultimately help you decide how much of that product to buy. But you're never going to say, oh, what the heck, 10, who cares? $10, $5, what's the difference? It doesn't work that way, does it? And in fact, you can tell what happens when things go on sale. How do you react to a sale?
People want them more.
Exactly. You buy more of it because it's now more of a bargain. So like if the 2-liter soda is normally $1.50 and suddenly you go to the supermarket and now it's like 3 for $3, let's say, you're probably going to you might be tempted to buy all 3 of them because you know that as far as you're concerned, it's worth at least $1.50 and you're only being asked to spend $1 on them. And that changes your thinking because now compared to other products that are available in the store, the value of this is such that you'll buy 3 of them because they're only $1 each. So now, whether you agree with this or not, this is what we're essentially assuming in all of our economics analysis that will follow, that people are rational. They'll make decisions based on their valuation of all the different products in the market that they're able to buy and how much they're worth to them. Now, does everybody agree on how much a product is worth, though? Absolutely not. Like I said, with the $10 2-liter bottle, which most people say, oh, come on, that's outrageous. There might still be people who pay for it because as far as they're concerned, it's worth $10. So markets exist where people, the reason why markets exist is so that people can buy and sell products that they believe are fairly priced, or in the case of prices that are too high, they might be willing to sell them. So anyway, so in the course, among other things, we're going to explain what a scarcity is, how we make choices, what kind of trade-offs are involved when we make choices, the differences between micro and macro, and then we're going to start introducing ourselves to some basic graphs. Okay. All right, so scarcity, again, this is the fundamental problem on which all of economic analysis is based. And the reason why this is an issue is because resources are limited, but wants are unlimited. Okay, I mean, unless, like you've seen in movies, you find like these monasteries where the monks spend their whole day doing whatever they're doing. They don't necessarily need a lot of material goods, but for most people, wants are unlimited. So there's an imbalance there that has to be satisfied through making choices. All right. So what kinds of questions does the field of economics attempt to answer? What will be produced? Well, that's a good question. How come why are the products that we see in the stores the ones that were chosen to be produced? How come we see, for example, why do we see iPads? And why do they have iPads in an Apple store? What causes them to want to produce iPads?
People end up buying iPads.
Exactly, because Apple is trying to figure out what people want, and they're trying to figure out how to give it to them as cheaply as possible so that they can make a profit. So if they brought out a product that nobody wanted, what would happen?
No one will buy it.
No one would buy it and they would lose money. So they have a very powerful incentive, being a profit-making institution, to make products that people want and to get it to you as cheaply as they can, because if they don't, competitors will come into the market and do it for them. So who benefits from this?
Everybody.
Everyone. Consumers have the best products for the lowest prices, and the people who work at Apple get paid big fat salaries, and the owners of the company are crazy rich. So that works out rather well for everyone. So that's why there's so much competition. People are trying to be the next Apple. They're trying to produce something that people want. And you know that in recent years, a lot of people have become very, very rich by stumbling onto something that people wanted, like YouTube or Facebook. The owners of these companies are crazy rich. Why?
Everyone uses their platform.
Exactly, which means they have produced something that is so valuable to society that they have become very wealthy as a result. And if YouTube was not convenient, nobody would use it. And of course, that means the owners of YouTube wouldn't make a lot of money. So the fact that they're so successful is an indication of how much they've produced from society's perspective. In fact, by the way, who knows this? Who is the richest man in America right now?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Are you sure? I thought it was still Jeff Bezos.
I think Musk passed him.
Oh, did he? Uh-oh.
I think so.
They've been neck and neck for like
Yeah.
weeks.
Musk passed him recently.
Oh no. Poor
Oh.
Jeff. I bet he's jealous. All right, now let's take a look at these numbers. You're right. I was wrong. Elon is at 185, and poor Jeff is only at 184. I bet he's steaming in his office, like, what do I have to do to get past this Elon Musk character?
It's interesting that when you Google it, it's still all pictures of Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, he's more. I don't know why. Somehow he's gotten himself to be more famous than. I think that's because everybody does Amazon, but let's face it. How many people do you know that own a Tesla? It's sort of like more like Jeff. He's that guy that you deal with every day. But Elon Musk, maybe that's a little bit more mysterious. Plus, the news is often very negative about him. The press is constantly criticizing him for whatever reason. And then you got others. Yeah. Wow. Now, by the way, just to put this in perspective, we're going to see a video later on in the course. Maybe I shouldn't spoil the fun, but you probably have heard of John D. Rockefeller. What was he known for? This is the early 20th century.
Oil.
He was the founder of Standard Oil, which had a monopoly on oil in the United States until the government broke it up around 1912, I think it was. So historians have estimated that his wealth in today's dollars, not at his time, but in today's dollars, was $660 billion. So that means Elon and Jeff are poor compared to John D. Rockefeller. So yeah, that's when you're getting up there. He was worth more than $500 billion at the time. But that's what happens when you have a monopoly on oil production. So yeah, that's so anyway, we'll talk about him later on in the course, because economic history is a very interesting field. And you'll see that, in fact, if you walk around Manhattan, when it becomes possible again, you'll see that a lot of buildings and museums were paid for by them. So like the MoMA, for example, was paid for by the Rockefellers because they had so much money. And of course, Rockefeller Center was built by them. So anyway, how will these things be produced? How do they decide how to make these products? Like Apple, they make the iPad. They're usually with these products, a lot of the inputs are coming from different parts of the world. Like a lot of the materials that they need are not easy to find in the United States. they have to be found in other countries. And in fact, a lot of the labor is often done as well in foreign countries. But they have to decide now, what exactly are they trying to do here? What decisions do they have to make to decide what and how, or actually how to make these products?
They try to find a place to find the lowest wages so they can make the most profit.
Of course, they have to make sure the quality is high enough, but yes, their job is to make this as cheaply as possible. And in this day and age, a lot of that means that they're producing a lot of the components of these iPads in foreign countries because labor is much cheaper, as we'll talk about that too. In most countries, labor is a lot cheaper, especially a country like India or China. Why do you suppose labor is so cheap in those countries?
They're developing nations.
Right? And one other detail,
Incentivizes growth.
right? Well, it's a very simple answer. Their populations are enormous compared to the United States. If there's more people, their wages will be lower. It's pretty much, that's the extent of it. There's no mystery about that. China has something like 1 billion more people than the United States. So it's easier to find people to do these jobs for relatively low wages. And so that's why this is being done. Otherwise, it would all be built here. In fact, there's an area that you might not think about, but if you were to randomly pick any of the clothes out of your closet, if they contain the information on them, do you think any of the clothes you own were made in the United States? Without taking your shirt off and looking at it, yes, the answer is no. Almost no textiles are made in the United States. Why not?
Because it's cheaper when you produce it foreign.
That's right. The reason for that, the specific reason for it though, is because these products require a lot of manual labor. The products that require a lot of high technology, like computer chips, those are going to be built in the United States though. Why?
I mean, high skill labor, but
Yes.
don't
And-
those chips are also made in overseas?
Some of them might be, but a lot of them are made here because it requires a lot of advanced technology. Or like aircraft, like Boeing. A lot of foreign countries buy their aircraft from Boeing. Why don't they build them themselves? Why would India buy all India Airlines buy all their airplanes from Boeing? Because building airplanes requires an enormous investment in capital equipment and advanced training. And so it's easier to just buy it from the US than try to make it themselves. Okay, so this is a discussion we'll have when we're talking about trade, which we will in this class. We'll be looking briefly at international trade, and we're going to see how and why companies determine where to produce their products. Okay, so anyway, how about this question? Who receives, this is the controversial one, who receives the goods and services that are produced? Well, in the US, the people who get the goods and services are the ones who can afford to pay for them. It's a very capitalist system. And so you earn money, you buy all these things. In other kinds of countries, in socialist countries, then the government gets involved in a big way in determining who gets what. Okay, so there are different ways the goods can be distributed. And you know, there's a range from very capitalistic to very socialistic and everything in between. All right, now, economics, choice and trade-offs. Of course, resources are limited. So if you have one thing, you have to sacrifice something else. Okay, so for example, if you buy a car, you can't also buy new furniture, let's say. Or if you spend 2 hours in the movies, those are 2 hours that you cannot also spend at a sporting event. So we always have trade-offs involved. All right, so you have to weigh the cost and benefit of every decision and use that information to make the best possible choices. Okay, so this is a very important idea, cost and benefit analysis. You're weighing, any decision will involve benefits and costs. So let's say you have a car, well, you're up to 150,000 miles on it. You want new furniture, but man, that car is going to break down any day now, isn't it? So you might want to think about getting the car instead of the furniture, because at this point, the benefit of having a new car would be greater than the benefit of the furniture, even if they cost the same. Okay, does that make sense? Now, yes, here it is again, rational. Rational choice is based on a comparison of the costs and benefits of these many alternatives, and they use this information to make the best possible choices. Opportunity cost. This is enormously important. Although you typically spend more time looking at this in a micro class, it also affects everything in macro. Has anyone seen this word before? Opportunity cost. Basically, when you make a decision, you have to sacrifice something. The value of what's being sacrificed is referred to as the opportunity cost of that decision. So here's a simple case. Let's say you've got a farmer and you have the ability to plant either wheat or barley on your land. So if you choose to go with the wheat, the value of the barley that you could not grow is the opportunity cost of the wheat. Now, the classic example of this is college. In order to go to college, you obviously have to pay for the tuition and all the rest. But what are you giving up when you go to college? At least for 4 years.
Time and money.
Well, you're giving up the opportunity to work at a job for 4 years. In other words, if you just, let's say you said, the heck with this, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go work at Staples for 4 years. You would have earned a salary. So the opportunity cost of being here could be considered to be the value of that salary that you're not earning. Now, having said that, does anyone want to change their mind and go work at Staples now? No, why not?
We know the outcome of working at Staples.
That's right. In the long run, the average, somewhere I read that the average person who goes to college versus the average person who does not will have a lifetime earnings of $1 million more than the person who just went to high school. Something in that neighborhood. Now, that's not obviously the same for everyone, but that's a lot. So in other words, if you did go to Staples, you might have a little money now, but in the lifetime, your lifetime, you'd lose an awful lot of money. So you would use your cost benefit analysis to say, well, the cost of working at Staples is I'm giving up an education. The benefit is a small salary. In this case, the cost far exceeds the benefit. And so therefore you would say, nope, forget it. I'm going to college. And also, there's some types of opportunity costs that are harder to quantify. For example, I mean, let's not kid ourselves, college is fun. If you go to work at Staples, you're going to give up all that fun, aren't you? Yes, you are. You don't want to do that, do you? No, 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 no. And then there's more than that. I mean, even just having the pride of having a college diploma, that is something you have to put a value on too. So opportunity costs can be found in every place where there's a decision being made. Whenever you make a choice, you're going to incur opportunity costs. So it's something we have to take into account when we make decisions. All right, now, and we'll get back to this later on. We'll see these topics coming up over and over again throughout the entire course. Incentives, rational individuals are assumed to respond to incentives. Here's an example. Now, many of you may live in a house. I mean, you may live in an apartment. I mean, your parents' house. I don't mean you have a house. I mean, your parents. If they have a house, of course, it's terribly expensive, but any payments that they make to the bank, the interest component of that is tax deductible. Okay, so if you pay rent, that doesn't work. You don't get any tax breaks. But if you own a house, all those payments that you make, the interest component is tax deductible. So what do you think that does in the housing market? Does that give people an extra reason to buy a house? It does. And so what that means is you're being given an incentive to buy a house rather than rent. So we're assuming that rational investors or rational individuals will respond to incentives. Okay. Or like I said, when you go to the store and something's on sale, as a rational person, you may respond to that by buying more of the product while it's cheaper. So incentives are they're very important in determining economic behavior. And there's all kinds of incentives. Like I said, the incentive to go to college. What is the incentive? Okay. Well, I don't want to be crude about it, but the incentive, let's see, I can't find my camera, is the bucks, the big bucks that you'll be earning presumably throughout your lifetime. Okay. I'm still getting used to this whole thing. Yeah, that's supposed to represent the big bucks, the cash. That's your incentive to go to college. Or if you're in a different area, maybe you just want to be famous. I don't know, or both. It's possible to do both, you know. Okay. So yes, we already had this discussion, macro versus micro. Macro, these prefixes are, I believe, Greek words. Well, the thing is, even if you have a lot of student debt, the total earnings in your lifetime should far exceed that debt compared to just going to Staples for the most part. Now, of course, it is a problem, and nobody denies that. But I would say that even allowing for that, you're probably going to earn enough extra money from your college degree to pay for that, and you'll still be better off than you would have been if you just went to Staples. Well, because I think a lot of it is because in the early years, the amount of money you earn when you first get out of college is quite low. It takes a while before your salary really reaches very high levels. So the good thing about college debt, though, is that they will give you the opportunity to stretch out the payments if you need to. So in other words, it's not like you got to pay it all back in 2 years or something ridiculous. You can stretch it out. Yes, there's interest, but it's a lot lower than you get on a credit card. So I'm not saying that this is going to work for every single person, but I'd say that most people are still, even with all the debt, still better off going to college than not going to college. So anyway, and it's more than just that too. Like when you have that degree, you have a lot more opportunities. Whereas when you don't have that degree, you're kind of stuck at whatever you're doing. And there's something to be said for the benefit of having more choices in front of you. Oh, anyway, yes. So why don't we do this real fast, just for the fun of it. Look up the exact meaning of the word macro. Okay. No, now see, now this is going to be trickier than I thought. How about this? Oh, look at this. Now we're getting somewhere. It means long, abnormally large on a large scale, taking into English from French and medieval Latin from the Greek macros. See that? You're not going to forget that now, are you? You are not. Now, how about the origin of the word micro? From the Greek micros, which means small. Okay. Yeah, I mean, realistically, almost all the words that we use are ultimately either Greek or Latin. That's just the way it is. Okay. Now, so that gives you a hint as to where this is going. Macro focuses on the so-called big picture, and micro focuses on the individual sectors of the economy, such as individual households, businesses, and individual consumers. Okay. Now, with macro, we might ask the following questions, and we will. How is total output measured? In other words, how do you know how big the economy really is? Well, if you've had any background from high school, you recall that we measure this with something called GDP, or gross domestic product. That measures the value of everything that a country produces during a given year. So let's have a little fun poll for that. What is the approximate size of the US GDP? All right, let's try a few here. Oh, it's multiple choice. All right, here we go. This is just for the fun of it. Nobody's going to be in trouble if they get it wrong. Whoops. Okay, all of a sudden it's being stubborn with me. All right. All right, I guess that's everyone. Now, yes, the answer is 20 trillion, which is a lot of, that's a big number. In fact, I think I just thought of another cool poll. This is more of a fun math question. I just, I don't know why I thought of it, but here we go. Just to get you a sense of how big this number really is, $20 trillion. All right, so the answer actually is 12. 6 goes with a million. There's 6 zeros in the number 1 million. 9 is a billion. 12 is a trillion. 15 is a quadrillion. So that's a lot of zeros. That shows you how big the economy really is. $20 trillion. Man. Now, you may have encountered the number trillion before. If your hard drive in your computer has 1 terabyte of storage, that's 1 trillion bytes of storage. That's a lot of storage. Okay, so all right, anyway. So what causes inflation? What influences the level of interest rates? What determines the strength of the dollar? These are all questions that we will consider in this class. This one, of course, means we're looking at the foreign exchange markets, which we'll discuss later on. Of course, as you know, if you've ever been to a foreign country, not every country uses the dollar, do they? No. What other countries have you been to where you needed a foreign currency? Oh, we do not have a lot of world travelers here, do we?
Italy,
All of them, right?
There. Yes. What currency did you use in Italy?
euros.
The euro, that's right. And we're going to talk about that too. The euro was created from 11 other currencies in 1999, and now there are 19 members in the Eurozone. And so if you go to any of those 19 countries, you'll have to pay the euro. The question is, how many dollars is it worth? How many dollars did you pay for those euros? Do you remember?
Nah, I was like 10 years old when I went.
Oh, all right. Well, then you probably weren't paying close attention to that detail. But yes, that value can fluctuate, and that can have a major influence on the value of any investments that you might have in, let's say, Italy, or any products you buy from Italy. So that's an important detail. It will definitely influence the strength of the U.S. economy. All right. How about micro? These are the kinds of things you ask in microeconomics. How does a firm decide how much of a good to produce? How do individuals determine which goods to consume, and how competitive is the market for a good? All right. Now, sometimes, it's hard to tell. The dividing line between the two isn't always all that sharp, but for the most part, there are certain topics that typically belong in micro and certain ones that typically belong in macro. All right, now I just want to quickly show you a few different types of graphs that will come in handy in this course. They're all pretty straightforward. By the way, does anyone here use Excel? You should. It's a very powerful tool. And all these graphs are produced in Excel. And so that's why I wanted to mention that. You should absolutely learn Excel sooner rather than later. It'll come in handy and you'll be able to use it for a lot of very powerful features. But we're going to start out with the so-called scatter plot, which is designed to show the relationship between two variables if there is one. So let me just show you what a couple of these things look like. So here's a scatter plot that shows the relationship between a corporation's profits and its sales. We have profits over here and sales down here. Now, what do you notice about these numbers? Well, when the sales increase along the horizontal axis, there's a very strong tendency for the profits to increase along the vertical axis, which means there's a very strong connection. That's right. Correlation is the technical word for this. If you've ever had a statistics class, you know that what we're seeing here is that these two variables are strongly correlated with each other. Now, on the other hand, what about the relationship between our profits and our competition sales? What's going on with these numbers? They're going in opposite directions. Why not? I mean, why is that happening? Well, clearly, the more our competitors sell, the less we sell, and the lower will be our profits. So this is going to give us a lot of helpful information when we create the scatter plot. What else do we have in here? Well, here we have two variables that have nothing to do with each other, profits and rainfall. Okay, unless you're a company that only makes umbrellas, of course, there's not going to be a connection here, is there? No. And so that's why the points are just scattered around. It looks like a beehive that you accidentally kicked over, doesn't it? Yes. So you're going to say, well, there's no pattern here, but I better run. Okay. Time series. These are designed to represent how a variable changes over time. Like here's a graph of a corporation's profits going back to 2008. What does this tell me about their profits? Are they going up? Yes, on average they are, although they had a couple of rough years in here. In general, they seem to be rising. So time series plots are useful for helping us see the pattern of a variable over time, if it's increasing, if it's decreasing, or if it's staying the same. All right, bar charts. We like to use these to show frequencies. Let me show you this one. So we looked at a corporation's profits over the last so many years, and we break them up into categories. Down here we have profits in millions. Here we have the frequency. So which profit range was the most common in this in this data set? How about 50 to 60? Because that happened 11 times. Oh, here we go. Yes, exactly. And what was the second most common one? That's correct. 60 to 70, exactly. Okay, so that's why this is so useful. You can see at a glance. We had one really awful year down here, two pretty rough years, and 5 terrific years. The most common case was this one. And so these bar charts are designed to help us see how the frequency with which the data are broken down. All right. Oh, I guess that's it. Oh my God, we're done with the whole chapter. Well, you know what that means? That means it's time to go home, but or you're already there. All right, it means you can take off your headphones, I suppose. That's what it means. But there's not very far to go to get home, is there? No, your commuting time is 0. Okay, so but anyway, yes. So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to post the second chapter as well as the video, by the way. I'll get it into my YouTube account and the video, the slides for chapter 2. And then between now and then, what you should probably do is just, flip through the slides and make sure you're familiar with what's coming up. And then we'll pick it up on Thursday. All right. Excellent. So unless there's any last minute questions, I guess we can knock it off for today. No. All right, good. So see you all next time.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
see
Professor.
later.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have
Thank
a
you for
great day.
class.
Good day.
Good day.
I have a question if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes. Good. What is it? Uh-oh, I lost you.
Chance, you teach at Fordham?
I do. How did you know that?
Sorry, my internet's like really bad. It's not.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So how did you figure that out?
So like this is weird because like our first of no, actually like we were like choosing courses together. We go to different colleges. And for one of the courses,
Yeah.
like it
You know
just
what?
looked really like I don't know. Your name looked really familiar. So
Oh. So you know somebody who's going there now?
yeah, so one of my friends who goes there now was like choosing courses for his because he's also an econ major. I don't know if I don't think he's taking you now,
Oh,
but
okay.
he was choosing courses and like we were looking at like all the course information and like I saw your name and I'm like, wait a minute, that's the
Yeah,
same guy.
It
who's
is.
taking
It's true. Yes, I teach part-time at 6 different colleges. I just make the round. So this online thing is actually working out pretty well because it saves me a lot of driving. So anyway, yes, you were absolutely right.
Yeah,
Very,
right, I can imagine. Yeah.
yeah. So
really
that was very observant of you, I must say.
Cool.
All right. Well, anyway, I guess we better get going.
'Cause I was like, there's no way. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I'll see you later.
Yes.
Bye.
All right. Okay. All right. Bye.